What's up everyone, I'm Jessekazam. Welcome back to another Escape From Tarkov video. In this video, we're going to be talking about what may be my new ultimate budget weapon in Escape From Tarkov, dethroning my previous ultimate budget weapon of last patch, which was the VSS, and the MP7 is what we're going to be talking about. There have been a lot of changes to the weapon. We're going to dive into the changes, why I think it's an awesome weapon, and even do a little bit of comparison to the Val and the VSS. I do stream Escape From Tarkov on Twitch. All my links will be down below. We also have a Discord that we'd love to have you stop by and say, hey, if you're looking for people to raid with or even just asking questions or anything like that. But with all that out of the way, let's go ahead and dive right in. So I always have to start videos like this with a little bit of a disclaimer around what budget means, because budget means different things to a lot of people. Some people like to just run, Mosins or pistols with very little or no armor at all and maximize their profit potential, which is totally valid if you want to do that. But the way I look at budget is more of something that I can really enjoy using, something I have plenty of ammo to get through the raid. I'm not banking on killing somebody early and taking their stuff and using it. And then something that has good value and can take down enemies all the way up to top tier, especially since we're a few weeks or months into the wipe. That's how I look at it. The other side of that coin is also often I don't think people realize how much money they spend on a kit. So when I say something, this is 100K just for the gun, attachments, and ammo and magazines, people are like 100K, that's so much. But people may not realize that when they have a weapon and then they buy a few attachments and they buy some ammo off the flea market and they buy this, that, they might not realize that they're already up there. So it can sound like a lot of the shock value there, but just be aware of that. But today we're talking about the MP7, and specifically, I've got a few different. I've got the other variant here, and then the VSS and the Val, and we're going to do a little bit of comparison a little bit later in the video because, I made a video about how the VSS was the ultimate budget weapon last wipe, and things have changed. But the MP7 has had some ammo changes and some stuff that has really kind of, in my opinion, sat it right where I want something to be for like a budget build, for like an awesome budget weapon. So if we're talking about the cost of the MP7s, there's two variants, the A1, the A2. They are very similar. The A1 has a foregrip that comes pre-installed on it that you cannot remove. The A2 allows you to put your own foregrip on it. You can suppress the A1. You can put all the same mods and everything like that on. You can buy the MP7s from Peacekeeper, and they are pretty affordable. So at level 3, you can buy the MP7 for $499, which comes under 60k rubles because $1 is like 120 rubles. And then at level 4, you can barter for the A2. I wouldn't recommend that because on the flea market, you can find these for about 35 to 37k normally, and the A2s at 37 to 40k. So very affordable weapons right off the bat. One of the things that's awesome about them is their modability and the fact that like MP7s come, especially if you're rocking the A1 that already has the foregrip, they come just ready to roll. You can throw an optic on and be absolutely ready to roll. There aren't a lot of like different compensators or anything that you have to choose from. This is just what you get. You have rail systems everywhere all ready for your red dot or anything. You don't have to buy adapters. You don't have to buy rails or anything for lasers or lights if you want to do that. And you are ready to go. So that is pretty great. They're just ready to roll. If you want to throw the suppressor on, you can just throw it on if you find it or buy it, and all that kind of stuff. Now the stats, the base stats of the weapon are awesome, which is why, once again, I think this is an amazing weapon. We're talking to stock 64 ergo, which is pretty solid. It's going to be pretty snappy right out the gate. Vertical recoil of 50, which is awesome for, once again, base, just stock weapon. The horizontal recoil is 170. So this is pretty high for a weapon, pretty high for a weapon that would be considered low recoil, especially. I did some testing that we'll see later in the video. This feels like when you're looking at the stats, like this is going to be really hard to control, especially since in general, vertical recoil is easier to compensate for because the gun is just going to go up. So all you got to do is pull down. Horizontal recoil, you don't really know which direction it's going to go, and it can be harder. And I think that's the perception, that it's much harder to control. Through my testing, I saw that this was not very much an issue at all, personally. It shoots pretty fast at 703 meters per second, and here's the big thing, is it shoots 950 rounds per minute. This is insane, even faster than the VSS. So if we want to just do a quick comparison, the VSS was my previous ultimate budget weapon. What's crazy about both of these weapons is they both sit in a weapon where they can be really good budget weapons and they can be really good high tier end game weapons. So I know a lot of people run the Val VSS with like really expensive ammo. I did a video on it because of similar stats, because really decent recoil, really high rate of fire. You can get cheap, smaller mags and some cheaper ammo, but they've tinkered around with the prices of the VSS and the Vals a lot. They normally run about double than the MP7s on the flea market. The ammo, which SP5 you could previously buy unlimited of, they've capped the ammo. The top tier ammos for the Vals and the VSSs you cannot purchase from traders. It's just flea market and they're very expensive. So a lot of that stuff have kind of push this out of the way. The modability, once again, you have to buy an adapter if you want to put like a foregrip or anything, which aren't expensive. It's just another thing. If you want to put a non-dovetail optic on, you have to buy an adapter for that too. Not very expensive, but it's just another thing to have to do. And when you look at the stats, it's got the MP7 has less vertical recoil, but more horizontal recoil. The MP7 shoots much faster at well over double, and it shoots more rounds per minute. And the stock ergo is much, much higher. So that's kind of why I feel like the VSS is dethroned. We'll talk a little bit about that as well. But these things are pretty moddable. They don't need much of anything to get going if you want to go. And the base stats are pretty awesome. So the other thing to talk about here is we'll talk about magazines and we'll talk about ammo. So the beauty of I guess the problem with something that fires really fast is that you're going to dump through your ammo really quickly. And that's the beauty of the MP7 over something like the VSS or the Val. So we know that the Val 30 round mags are really expensive. They're 40K and the 20 rounders are 8,500, much more affordable. But for mechanic, the 40 round mags for the MP7 are 13K. So like you could buy 2.5 of these for every 30 round Val mag that you purchase. You can buy 12 from the trader, and they're 40 round mags as opposed to 30. So you're getting more capacity, cheaper, and you can buy more per reset. And then additionally, the 30 round mags are cheaper than the 20 round mags for the Val to VSS. You can buy 7 of these every reset, and it's 30 rounds. So basically, there's no reason to really run an MP7 with less than 30 rounds, which puts it at a really good spot with that fast fire rate, especially as we'll see later, because the bigger magazines, especially the 40, really give the recoil of the gun time to level out, and then you can continue to be firing if you're pulling a mag dump on somebody, which can be really, really nice. So the magazine availability and price is really, really good. For the budget mode, I would say buy 4 of these 30 round mags and you're going to be in a really good spot. Now we can take a look at the ammo. So the ammo is once again very cheap and available relative to some other rounds, some other calibers, and some other really high tier rounds. So in the spirit of the budget that we're going for, the FMJ rounds from level 3 Peacekeeper, they're often out of stock right now because of this buff that they got. They're in a really good spot. You can buy them for $2, which is 240 rubles per. You can buy 250 per reset. So you can get, they're really cheap. You can buy quite a bit of them. And we'll look at the stats here in a second, but I just wanted to make a note about that. Also, just kind of like a super fun fact caveat. The MP7 ammo stacks in 70 as opposed to 50. So that means if you're running 1 extra stack in your gamma, alpha, beta, whatever, you can take even more ammo, which is nice. But the FMJ would be considered, it's, we'll look at the stats, but it's around the like SP6, SP5. So, well, actually above SP5, but this is going to be the round that's like your mid-tier budget ammo. This for 240 rubles, you know, roughly per, this ammo shreds. The highest tier ammo for the MP7 is the APSX, which has really, really good stats. We'll take a look at in a second. You can buy 200 of these every reset for 751 rubles. So once again, we're just going to compare this real quick before we start looking at stats. 751 rubles for the top tier ammo. And if we look at SP6, which is the third best Val ammo, but the top tier one that you can buy from the traders, it's, you can buy less SP6 and it's slightly more expensive. And then same with SP5, also is right about the same price as that FMJ, and you can't buy as much. So it kind of takes the cake there with the ammo. So we can take a look at the stats here. of the ammos. So both of these, the APSX and the FMJ, sit really, really well as far as stats. So the APSX with 53 pen, that means this thing is going to be reliably just cutting through class 5 armor, and it's going to be able to get through class 6 pretty quickly. It does give a little bit of a recoil nerf though, which is interesting. Not all ammos do that, but it does. The FMJ, which is what I would recommend for a budget build, comes in at 40 pen, which puts it above something like BT in a 545 weapon, and 43 damage. Really, the FMJ is just a beautiful kind of like value proposition all around, with only being 240 rubles a shot. You can buy 250 per reset. It's got 40 pen and 43 damage. Now, when we compare that to like the Val ammos and stuff like that, BP and SPP, once again, you can't buy anywhere but the flea market. These things are really good ammos. They shred, but when you look at both of those, 48 pen, 45 pen, APSX is more readily available, much cheaper, higher pen. SP6 has 43, which puts it right above the FMJ, and SP5 has 35. A few things to note about these ammos, though, is that the Val and VSS ammo has a lot more damage, like flesh damage, but this doesn't really take much into consideration, in my opinion. All of the MP7 ammos will 1-tap a head unarmored, and the FMJ is still going to 2-tap a chest, and the APSX is going to 3-tap a chest. So you do have to put one more shot on there. If you, after 2 shots, the chest is, or the thorax is very low health, and these guns shoot 950 rounds per minute. So I would take all of the other benefits, the availability, the price, all that stuff, and you know, this little bit less of damage, but it is something to take note of. The other thing to take note of is the armor damage. So across the board, the Val and the VSS ammos, including the SP6 and SP5, which would be the more budget conscious rounds, do more armor damage. But once again, in my testing using the Battle Buddy app, that doesn't equate to a whole lot of extra shots. So an FMJ even with 41 armor damage and 40 pen, like zeroes out a fresh brand new slick in 6 or 7 rounds. So if we're talking a 40 round mag, means you can miss some shots, 950 rounds per minute. So you can definitely still make that happen. It's not going to be quite as fast. I think SP6 can zero out that slick in 5 or 6 instead of 6 or 7 rounds or something like that. And SP6 is pretty comparable, SP5 is. So that's something to be aware of. But once again, you have to include that into the whole story. So the Val and the VSS take the horizontal recoil and the armor damage and flesh damage. But I really believe that the MP7, when you add everything else into the equation, feels really good. Everything is restricted nowadays with how many mags you can buy, how much ammo you can buy. So that's unfortunate that with all these guns, same with the VSS and the Val, you're normally only going to be able to run like 1 or 2 raids worth of stuff before you have to switch or buy it off the flea market, which makes it much more expensive. But that's the MP7. Really high tier ammo that's available. Awesome magazine capacity. The ammo stacks high. The base stats are pretty good. Ready to roll. And the gun is cheap. So if you wanted to purchase off the flea market an A1, get 4 mags, enough ammo to fit all of the mags, 4 30 round mags, and have a 70 stack, you're looking at just over 100K, which puts it right up there. The VSS build that I did a while ago had 20 round mags, same amount with less ammo in the gamma, and it was a little bit more expensive than that. So they have not only restricted the Val and the VSS as far as like ammos, they've also done some minor nerfs to the ammo and nerfed the recoil. So I don't have the exact stats of what they were last wipe. They were a little bit more laser beamy last wipe, but in my opinion, this weapon is a really, really good just balance between price and really powerful weapon that you can use pretty quickly while you're playing as well. I just kind of have this here as like a fully kitted version. If you wanted to, here, we'll go back to the menu so we can take a look at everything. But if you wanted to, you could switch out the sights for the M-bus sights to eke out a little bit more ergo. You can put something like a shift on there. I would say if you're going to mod this all the way, go for ergo, because the recoil reduction doesn't do much for you. Like if we wanted to replace the shift, which is like an ergo a more ergo foregrip and slap the RK2 on, which has the best recoil reduction, we're looking at a difference of 1 recoil. It goes from 46, and when I throw the shift back on, it goes to 47. But I get much more ergo by doing this. The suppressor, it's pretty expensive, and it really only suppresses. Like, it doesn't give you really great stats. It's -6 ergo plus 2 and only 2% recoil reduction, which once again, on a gun that's already so low, isn't going to do that much for you. So I threw it on because it looks cool and running suppressed is fun, but it's not going to do a whole lot for you as far as stats. The MP7 is just pretty solid and ready to go while you're right after you buy it. So that's the MP7. That's why I think it's an amazing budget weapon that can shred even up to high tier targets right now in Escape from Tarkov. So now what we're going to do is we're going to hop into a raid, and I'm going to shoot all these guns so that you can take a look at those recoil spreads. You can take a look at how that horizontal recoil goes into effect, and how with these higher capacity mags of the MP7, you really let the gun level out its recoil, and then you kind of get to laser beam somebody. So let's go do that. This will just be a full auto spray, and I'm not going to hit Alt to steady my aim or hold my breath. I'm just going to hit left click, and we can kind of take a look at the spread. So at this distance, we can see, right, my point of aim was here. Our highest shot was right about there, and then it leveled out, and I was able to put quite a few shots down range. Now, once again, that horizontal spread isn't insane. Whereas the stats kind of make it look like it's going to be 170, and we can compare that to the budget version of the VSS, and we'll put that on full auto. Once again, I'm not going to hit Alt. I'm going to try and keep my point of aim at a similar spot. I'm just going to hold left click. So we can see here that the vertical spread is definitely higher. As we can see, obviously here, the vertical is 57 and this vertical is 50. There's not a big difference there, but especially if you use the VSS and the Valve from last wipe, you'll notice that this is pretty much, it's worse compared to the last wipe. Once again, still very usable, especially at this stage. But with something like this, if you're starting at chest and you're going up to head, you might need to pull it down a little bit because it goes up pretty high. But once again, something that I wanted to look at is the horizontal spread between these two at these distance is not that bad. Like when we look at the spread here of bullets, it's not like the horizontal of the MP7 was insane. You know what I mean? Even at this distance, almost all those shots would hit. So it is definitely something to consider. And if we reload and kind of just like reproduce this experiment, not holding Alt, it's not too bad. They're both going to shred. They both, to me, have very usable recoil patterns. Now, when you back up a little bit, that's definitely where you're going to see this MP7 and that horizontal recoil kick in a little bit more. Like, let's even go like around this distance, not hitting Alt. And then we'll just quickly compare that to the VSS. So you can see from that distance, we're definitely widening our spread here, but it's not that much wider. If this was the original point, we hit maybe 1 or 2 that went over top. As you can see here, it's pretty similar. The vertical isn't insanely worse. But the big thing here is that while you can definitely tell the horizontal spread is a little wider, it's not, you know, when you're considering 170 horizontal versus 82, you would think that that recoil would be just so wide, when it's really not that bad. And even if we wanted to test out more of like a full featured MP7, it's going to be roughly the same thing. You can really tell there with the 40 round mag, the ability to let the recoil even out, and then you can just drill your targets with all of that leftover ammo. It's insane. And then we've got the 30 round mags here with something like a Valve that's more full featured. And you're really same there. So of course, each gun, those stats with the higher horizontal and the lower recoil or flip that are going to have situations. But to me, after doing some testing, it really wasn't a huge deal. I thought the horizontal recoil of the MP7 was going to be worse. It's not something that I'm going to be worried about while I'm running the MP7. But on the flip side, what I ended up not realizing until I was doing some testing and really falling in love with is if you have to mag dump, those higher capacity magazines really give you the extra ammo after the recoil of the gun has mellowed out to really laser down your target. So that's the testing I've done. That's the numbers that I wanted to bring. In my opinion, the MP7 really does take the cake. The VSS and the Val in their current state just can't really hold a candle to it, in my opinion, when it comes to even the feel of the gun, the price of the gun, the availability of the ammo, the availability of the mags, all that kind of stuff. So I wanted to take this time to compare the two so that you can see, because a lot of people run the VSS and the Val so they can see where the MP7 is. I suspect that they'll change the MP7s at some point soon, but it's in a really good spot now. I'm excited to run it. And I think you can get a version of it that I would consider budget. 100K for the gun, some mags, some ammo, some extra ammo. That feels really good to me. So I hope that this helps just kind of bring some of that information and a little bit of that comparison between these two weapons. Thank you all so much, as always, for taking the time to check out this video. If you like it, think about dropping a like. That really helps me out, or subscribing for more content like this. I really try to create content that helps shorten the learning curve of Tarkov and get you in your raids having fun as soon as possible. Like I said before, I do stream on Twitch, and I would love to have you stop by and say hey and hang out with us while we're live. And then once again, the Discord is an awesome place if you just want to chill with some people that like Tarkov, find somebody to run raids with, or get help or anything like that. Thank you again for stopping by, and I will definitely see y'all on the next one.